Welcome. If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea.
Welcome back to Electric Ideas and Happy New Year. I'm your host, Whitney Baker, and this is a replay episode that I felt called to share because I know research shows that more than 50% of women usually have some sort of weight loss intention that they set around the new year. And this is a topic I tread very lightly on and don't talk about that much on the Electric Ideas podcast for many reasons. First of all, I think it's a topic that sometimes takes up too much headspace in women's life. And sometimes that just angers me and frustrates me. And I'm like, let's talk about something different. So I'm just being honest there. I also think that the inability to shed unwanted weight is a super complex and emotional challenge for many women that can stem from so many biological, environmental, emotional factors that I'm very discerning about who I would engage in a conversation with in this podcast and beyond about this topic, because my belief is that it's really about the whole person. And if it's something you're struggling with, there's an opportunity to look at it from a lot of angles. That said, I'm someone who had my daughters 14 months apart. Objectively, I gained more weight than is recommended with both pregnancies, and I had my second daughter before my body had had a chance to fully recover. And I just remember that period of my life in early motherhood where I just had this physical sense of heaviness all the time. And it felt like my entire essence was kind of being bogged down with this weight. And it's hard to do good and show up in the way we want when we're not feeling good and at home in our bodies. So that is why I am willing to go there in this conversation. In case it's helpful, I'll share that a pattern I see in many women I work with is that they're tending in some degree to how they're moving nutritionally, what they're putting in their bodies, which are great foundations. But a lot of women completely negate stress in the equation of what they're doing on a daily basis. After my own learning and my own journey and interviewing so many experts on women over the years, I've come to realize that women's bodies are wired for protection. And our nervous systems, I think, are particularly sensitive to any perceived stress. So when stress is ongoing, think, the emotional labor that you're all probably in the thick of with kids off from school, balancing the holiday schedule, decision fatigue, laundry, shoes scattered everywhere. And when your cortisol is routinely heightened, your body is more likely to store fat. I want to qualify that I am not a health coach. I'm not a weight loss expert, but I've just understood this at such a deeper level from interviewing this broad range of female experts. It's just become crystal clear to me that aging bodies need to spend time outside of hypervigilant states. Oftentimes, shedding of mental and physical heaviness that they're ready to release becomes a byproduct. So for all of these reasons, since I acknowledge this is a topic that's on the mind of many women as we turn the page to 2026, I hope this replay conversation with Danielle Pashko is a meaningful listen for you today. Danielle has written multiple books. She's a functional nutritionist and chronic illness coach. And part of this conversation is inspired by her personal journey with chronic Lyme disease and long COVID, and how these debilitating illnesses forced her to reshape her health in many ways, and kind of the awakening that she had that there was a different way, especially as she gets a little bit older, to remain her own ally and love herself into well-being. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this relevant replay conversation, and I am wishing you health, vitality, peace, joy, and deep self-connection moving into 2026. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
As much as I avoid this topic sometimes because it makes me feel sad how much time women spend agonizing about their weight, I know it's a topic that comes up for a lot of women as they are thinking about goals and visions for the new year. I believe that our bodies want to be at optimal health, and I want this for everyone in my community. I know a lot of women are on a roller coaster of chasing wellness trends, be it juice cleansing, gluten-free, paleo, whatever. From your decades of work in the wellness industry, can you start by sharing with us why you think this might actually impede our progress?
Well, regarding weight and trends, everyone is bio-individual. So I see this across the board that one diet that works amazing for someone, let's say they're a vegan and they thrive, and then someone else, me personally, I was 25 pounds heavier as a vegan, and I do well on a more paleo, carnivore, high protein, low carbohydrate. So you can't really judge based on what you're seeing from trends. It's really good to go by your lab work. But getting to your first question, the topic of weight loss and people stressing over it, I used to work in my practice focusing primarily on weight loss. I wrote a weight loss book. I worked with a lot of models. I was in Manhattan, also a lot of brides. And that was, it was the thing that I was doing until I had my own health challenges. And I had thyroid cancer. I had chronic Lyme disease later, and then dealing with things from COVID. And it made me shift my focus a bit to not just focusing on the scale, but really what is the value of health? And I would look at women who would cry over their weight and I would say, but you're so lucky because you're healthy. And that's really what we should strive for. And the truth is that rather than look at weight in terms of the scale, if you look at food as how will this make me feel? Will this help me reduce my inflammation? Will this help my hormones? Will it help my cortisol levels, my adrenal function, my glucose levels, my gut health, and all those things that contribute to good health? If you eat in such a way, weight loss is kind of a side effect. So I say strive for having all these things to be healthy and in range. And then you'll notice, wow, I actually am losing weight, because people can lose weight by taking weight loss supplements or drugs or eating a very restricted diet, but they're going to feel like crap. And at the end of the day, like, how does that serve you? So if you can get your mind wrapped around the idea of health, that's really when the weight loss follows. And that's really how I work with people.
Yeah, I want to jump in. There's so much to dive into in there. It's really bringing up for me the sense that I've had of loving myself into my greatest well-being.
Yes.
And I think that seems like an evolution you've had as well on your journey, with the restrictive diets or the intensity and all this stuff. I'm not saying we don't hold ourselves accountable, and there's a time and a place, but it's a really big shift when women empower themselves to love themselves into this optimal well-being versus feeling like they're judging themselves, forcing themselves, restricting themselves. What do you have to say about that?
Absolutely. I mean, the way you take care of your body is definitely a form of self-love, self-respect. You have to care about how you treat yourself, and more so than just thinking about in terms of being thin. And we put so much pressure on ourselves as women. And it's also funny because a lot of times we do it for other women. Men, when they look at women, they want a woman who feels confident in her body and feels good about herself and loves herself and feels sexy. And if she has all that going for her, it's not going to upset the man the way she looks. It's really just this judgment from other women who are ridiculous. So if you have that confidence and you're self-assured, that's what you really have to focus on.
Good point. And I also, I'm a certified meditation teacher and really lean into conversations about stress in this podcast. Yeah. And I think we all know we get to eat well, we get to move, we get to choose sleep habits that support us, we get to stay hydrated. But I'll say it again and again, women don't take stress seriously and how it impacts weight loss specifically. Stressing about losing weight is not helping anybody lose weight. Can you tell us a little bit of the background and science on that?
Well, stress, the way it affects your hormones, it can throw them out of whack. Your thyroid, which is like your internal regulator, it houses your metabolism. If you're super stressed out, your thyroid is not going to be working optimally. Your cortisol levels will be dysregulated, or if you're producing too much cortisol, it leads to weight gain. When you don't sleep well, it leads to weight gain. And it's just really important to relax because it is hard to lose weight in a super stressed state. Additionally, when women are over exercising because they think, oh my God, I have to like kill myself at the gym to take the weight off. Once you hit a certain age, especially when you're hitting your later 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you cannot do the same kind of workouts because they're depleting. They're actually rough on your hormones and they actually can make you hold weight. And when I speak to women who are looking to lose weight, many times I'll say, get off those hardcore runs and these crazy boot camp classes and go more restorative, go more into the yoga, go more into the things that I love, like Tai Chi and Qigong, or walking, or things that are good and restorative for your body. Not only will they help you to regulate your metabolism, control your hormones better, but also you age better that way. When you beat yourself into the ground, I see people who are like, they're serious athletes as they get older, but they just overdo it, or they're just obsessive, like they can't miss their 5 a.m. workout. And it's like, it shows on their face. And that's not good either. So I think that we have to just be kinder to ourselves. And if you really want to get like into the science behind it, the truth is most of the women I work with who have the hardest workouts, a lot of them are the most overweight because they think that gives them a license to eat more. They're more hungry. So it's really like 80% diet, 20% exercise. So if you have good habits and good sleep hygiene and you control your stress levels and you do restorative practices, but you get in some, hit kind of movements, high intensity interval training once in a while, you move, but if you don't kill yourself, but you're just keeping it balanced, but your diet is really well managed and you're eating for optimal health, you're not going to have a problem.
I'm glad you brought up that last point. That's exactly what I was going to share in my own journey. I mean, it's just obvious, but I feel like some women don't think about it this way. You said 80% is diet.
Yeah.
Which I think we all subconsciously know, but we want to be like, oh, I'll just exercise and it'll be fine. But when we're stressed, we're much more likely to, I know this for myself. It's a practice. It's not something I get all the time. But when I'm feeling in flow and I'm practicing all the practices that help me feel grounded, I'm more likely to make eating decisions that nourish me. And when I notice that I'm slipped into, past programming of eating unconsciously, like standing up, eating pizza in the kitchen that my kids rejected, that sort of thing. I'm like, okay, well, I need to slow down. And I think from a stress management perspective, it really impacts your ability to make choices consciously about what you're eating.
Definitely.
I know that you've also talked about, we talked about varying your workouts. I think that's important. And I know that you have shifted a lot in your ethos. We talked about this based on even the titles and the language of your first book to where you are now. In the beginning, you told us a little bit. I know that you've had several setbacks, and it would be easy for someone to look at you in a way that's like, oh, she's a model in Manhattan. What does she have to worry about? I think that's totally unfair, but I'm just sure that you get that. Yeah. But, you've dealt with thyroid cancer, you've dealt with Lyme disease, you've had your own fair share of issues. So what can you tell us? I think it's a really important lesson that I'd like to hear your perspective on is regardless of getting to that air quotes ideal weight, I think a lot of people think that when I weigh this certain amount, I'm just going to be happy and they just have that in their head. And I think you can tell us that's not true.
Definitely not true. I think, listen, social media, as we know, has good qualities because we're able to share content and we see new things coming out and it's interesting, but also it keeps us connected. But it's just so toxic the way that we look at people and we think their life is so magnificent and everything is just like great because of what they look like, or they look like they have a lot of money. Everyone has something. When I worked in this clinic, I worked in for 14 years. It was a very well-known clinic in Manhattan. And we had a lot of celebrities and supermodels and all these people coming in. And I used to always think, like, I would look at this beautiful woman, like super rich, or this really wealthy guy, the whole thing. And I would say, I wonder what their challenge is. I swear, like, it was just because that everything is not as perfect as it appears to be. If you're not going through some kind of challenge in your life at some point, you're not growing at all. But nobody gets a free pass. So it's just not fair to say that. Like, you may look at someone and think like, well, they're lucky with their weight, but then someone like me will be saying, well, you're lucky because you have children and I don't. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can make excuses of why you're not doing things and it's easy for this person, but everyone's going through struggles.
What is a lesson that you learned about true health and happiness requiring inner work and true self-love?
I really believe that trauma, unresolved issues, not having a lot of self-love, worry, doubt, all these type of things can really contribute to illness. And it's really important that the space that we keep ourselves in, because it really does affect our health. And, there's this beautiful quote that I love, and it's, the greatest reason for illness is unhappiness, and the biggest healer is joy. And it's really true. So our emotional state really affects the way that our body shows up in terms of what we're dealing with. And I work a lot with the chronically ill community and people who have a lot of autoimmune issues or Lyme disease, something that I've experienced. And I've had more sensitivities towards that population, dysautonomia, long COVID, things like that. And I find that people who have had a lot of trauma in their life, it affects their immune system. And I find that they actually express even worse with their health conditions without getting to the root. So it's really important to work on yourself, to actually work on your healing. That is a huge part of being well.
Well, that seems to have really powerfully informed where you're kind of showing up now. It feels like a softer mode of wellness. Is that a fair reflection?
That's such a good way to phrase it, because when I was feeling at my best, I mean, there was a point in time I was doing Ashtanga yoga every morning at 5:30, and then I would go to my work. I'd work all day from, 8 to 6, 7 at night, living in Manhattan. Then I'd walk home, and I would make sure I got on my extra exercise. And I was so like obsessed taking my 50 supplements, and I don't even know what I was doing it for. I just thought, like, you look at these biohackers, and I have to like smile at it, because it's like the whole thing is like, yeah, I want to live to be 120 or 150. And this is how you avoid aging. And it's all this restriction. And I'm like, if you want to live to that long, like, you should want to enjoy life before you die. Like, what is the point? So I think, yeah, it is softer. I'm like, I'm not going to kill myself like that anymore. I don't want to do that. In terms of eating, like, I'm just not so rigid. People are like, what's your style of eating? I'm like, well, like, I eat to feel well, but if I can have a food that's not going to cause a flare and any health symptoms, that's sort of not the healthiest thing in the world, but I enjoy it, I'll eat it. I just want to be happy in life. There's so much pain and struggle and things that we deal with that it's like, we can't just keep beating ourselves up. So I think definitely wellness is not just about juice cleansing and vitamins and sitting in front of a red light or doing cryotherapy, cold plunge, all that crap. I mean, I do it too sometimes, but that's not wellness. Wellness is like really being rooted in who you are, being a kind person. People don't think about this, but even in terms of health, like, before I go to a doctor's appointment, I believe there's a direct spiritual connection between charity and your health, and whatever you are doing down here is seen above, and you get blessed for that. So if I'm concerned about something, I always give charity and the merit that it's going to positively affect my health. And I encourage that to people, even though that might be not the most orthodox thing to say when I'm working with someone, but we have these conversations because it's about how you are as a human. And then I believe that affects your overall being. We're not just, physical beings, we're spiritual beings, and we need to tie that together.
That's beautiful. I really see and appreciate you sharing that. You have become very into Tai Chi and some other practices that you said have really helped you open up to more emotional and mental healing and balance. Do you want to give us just a little bit of overview for people that might not be familiar with these practices on how they are ancient and how you, as a woman living in the modern world, kind of incorporate and teach those?
Yeah. So I think the nervous system has so much to do with our healing. And a lot of these practices focus on the nervous system. But I always had a fascination with Kung Fu. When I was like young, I watched like all these Bruce Lee movies, but I never practiced that. I was always a yoga teacher. And when I was at my sickest, I was dealing with a lot of fatigue, vertigo. Like I was really bad after COVID. My Lyme flared terribly. And I would use visualization. And every day I would do this visualization of watching myself. I didn't know the actual moves, but I would imagine myself doing Kung Fu in my visualizations. And that just meant I was healed. And then I said, I'll never be able to do Kung Fu. Like I get out of bed and I'm like tired just walking down the street. I like to keep my word with doing things. So I said, let me try a softer form of Kung Fu. And I met this teacher who taught Tai Chi, and he was a former Kung Fu teacher, now teaching Tai Chi. And by the way, Tai Chi is actually a martial art and it does work in self-defense, but it's a slow form of Kung Fu. So I did some private sessions with him. I was too weak to even do a class with a bunch of elderly people. I was embarrassed. As a former yoga instructor, I was like, I cannot do this class. So I started doing these privates with him. And if anyone here ever saw the movie The Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, he was my Mr. Miyagi. And he literally nursed me back to health. We would do Tai Chi and Qigong in the park. And we worked on grounding. We worked on meditation, stillness, which was hard for me because I practiced Ashtanga yoga, which was fast. Even though I meditated, I didn't like these slow movements. I had to get into that. But it built up my chi, my life force so much that my fatigue, it just left. My vertigo and my visual issues improved so drastically. I felt like I had a brain injury before, like almost like a concussion. It helped so much with that. And it was really working on the nervous system. And after a while, he knew how much I love Kung Fu. I would tell him I was like obsessed with this. And he said, I think you should start practicing Wing Chun. And that is what Bruce Lee practiced. And I'm like, yeah, right. I came to him like a broken bird, like my wings were like broken. And I'm like, you think I could do Kung Fu? He said, yeah. So I found this studio in New York and I walked in and I gave like the teacher this whole thing, like, I had this health issue. I'm going to probably, if I pass out in your class, like I did great. I practice Wing Chun all the time. So I'm like doing like the art that Bruce Lee does. Like I keep advancing. And so I do the Tai Chi Qigong, but it led me to ultimately do the Kung Fu that I saw in my visualization. So it's changed my life.
Wow. That's very inspiring. And it's coming full circle. In the beginning, we were talking about how women sometimes are just working out and doing things in a punishing way.
Yeah.
And even as someone who's deeply entrenched in the practice of meditation, a lot of women who are living full lives are like, I just don't have time for that. And I want you to speak into a little bit more about how hard it was in the beginning for you to learn to trust the slowness of this practice.
Yeah. Well, when people say they don't have time, I understand, especially when you have kids, it's challenging, but I had no physical strength to work with. I mean, I had to drag myself to this person with my balance so unstable that I was like almost like agoraphobic. Like I was scared to even be outside because I felt so not grounded. And I just had to trust that I'm going to be okay in his hands. And I had no choice to start off, but slowly. And then when I saw how it's so powerful, some of the slow forms are even harder than doing some of these really intense exercises. You build yourself up so much more. The energy. I watched a video. It was very funny. It was like this giant wrestler. It was like David and Goliath, and like this small, Tai Chi master. And this big wrestler's like pushing him. And this Tai Chi guy's very like calmly and just like pushes him. But he's built up his life force so much. The guy is like flying. My teacher's a bit like that too. He's gentle, very soft. He's very like yin in his movements. But when we just play around and he touches me, he's like, sorry, I go flying, and you see how much energy you cultivate. And that's what our body wants, because we're beings of energy. So if we can build that up, that is really the essence of our health. And it really took my brain a while to think that, because I was one of these women years ago before this stuff that I was like, no, you need to do the hard cardio. Like, I need to do the boot camp. I need to do Ashtanga yoga. I can't do slow hatha yoga because I need to like burn the calories and, keep my muscles. And I'm really strong right now. And it's really because of these forms. So yeah, it's kind of like the irony, and also like the idea of like, the more you think you know, the more you don't know, or however that phrase goes. But it was a learning curve for me.
What gifts has your practice of being able to be still in life given you?
It's given me so much appreciation to be able to be still and just feeling rooted. Some people take that for granted, but I felt like so unrooted, and it just feels so good to like be in your body. It's such a gift to like have health and be in your body. And that like I have chills, like that's what it's given to me. And nothing in this world is important if you don't have your health, right? Health is everything. So the stillness and feeling good. Yeah, I just have so much gratitude for that.
Yeah. And for some reason, it's coming up for me. It just feels like you're not chasing something with these hardcore workouts. Not that I think that there's a time and place for a little intensity, but it doesn't have to be the MO. And it feels like a homecoming to be still versus just like another way that you're just exerting outward energy. Have you experienced that?
Absolutely. It's a softness, but it feels so graceful. And I'm not quite there. I'm like not an expert at this point, but I've been spending a lot of time, and you feel like the grace and the flow and movements. It's actually like quite feminine, even though it's not just a feminine art, but I don't know, it like makes me feel so like feminine, and like I love the flow, and just it's beautiful to do and to watch. And we play with fans, these almost like dances with these fans, and actually, they were used as weapons back in the last century, like believe it or not, and women would use them. But there's like a play that you do with Tai Chi, and it's just beautiful to watch, and you feel so good. And yeah, so I still like the harder forms. I still do the Kung Fu, and I love that, but I can now. And I also express it differently because, sometimes people go into doing a Kung Fu practice, like just, ready to fight. And like my teacher, he's gotten me to like breathe and move, even like there's the yin and the yang. The yin is the feminine, the yang is the male, and even to move in a more yin fashion. And by the way, just so you know, like Wing Chun Kung Fu was developed by a nun, just FYI. So that's really cool. So women think that like martial arts are just for men, but like, yeah, it was developed by a nun. And because women get attacked in close range, so it's a very close fighting form. And she was very smart. And so that's what Bruce Lee and a lot of these other, Kung Fu masters adopted. But yeah, it came from a woman.
So many good things have come from women. I'm glad we got that credit out there.
Yes. We didn't get enough credit, but we're pretty badass women. That's why I think women should like honor other women. There's so much like cattiness and negativity. I love strong women. Like you said in the beginning when we spoke, to support women. Like it's so important. And that's why like when it comes down to weight or what people think, like if someone's going to be judgmental of you, like get rid of them. We don't need that in our life. Life's too short.
Yeah, I agree. I encourage my clients to do almost like a little energy check-in around people that they're around frequently and just be aware. It's not like you need some big, huge intentional breakup of a friend or anything, but be aware of people that leave you feeling uplifted or drained. It's pretty simple to just get intentional about who you put yourself in a room with. So,
absolutely.
I know we've covered a lot of territory. I just wanted to give you a chance. Is there anything in the area of conscious, softer releasing of weight or these ancient practices that are clearly giving you a lot of life and vitality right now that is on your heart that you want to share with my listenership?
In regards to the weight, I just keep going back to thinking about what you said in the self-love and not punishing ourselves, and really just looking at your body as something that you really want to nourish and be gentle with and kind to. And I really believe that if you start doing that and you are softer and you are more grounded and you're not so stressed, I think you're going to notice these changes, and you'll also just become more beautiful. Like, your body is one thing, but also like your face, you'll see the softness in your face and your eyes will become brighter. All of these things for overall, you want to say like vanity, it's going to help all of that. So you'll appear differently to people. Once you're centered and grounded, you'll also attract more, and you'll attract more men too, if that's your reason for wanting to lose the weight. Just being in your body, I think that will bring that towards you.
I always end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So as we inspire my community to step into their wellness in 2025, what's one question we can all be asking ourselves?
I think it's really individual, but I do think we should ask ourselves a question of who we want to be in 2025. And I think it's very personal to everyone. And I even do this myself. I close my eyes and I go into imagining the person that I want to be and how I want to show up in the world. So for me, that may look different, and I may have a different question I'm asking myself in terms of where I want to be in that period of time. But I think we should get into a meditative state and really go deep. And I think by doing that, the question will come to you and you can start working on what you see as your optimal 2025 self.
That's beautiful. I'll just reflect that back. I think getting ourselves into that place of stillness that we've really talked about this whole time, and asking a question and giving ourselves that space, that sacred space to listen and actually get clear on what we're even craving.
That's the thing, clarity. And that's why the question is different for everyone, because having that clarity to know where do we want to grow this year, and that growing shows up differently for each person.
I know my community will want to follow you and see where you go with all of this beautiful ancient martial arts practice. So where can we connect with you?
So my website is called Soul Hacker, but it's spelled with a K. So it's SOULHAKER.com, soulhacker.com. And then on social media like Instagram and X, it's just my name, which is Danielle Pashko.
Wonderful. Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.
The UPS Store knows the holiday season puts more on everyone's plate, but we're helping you send your gifts to ensure more.
Let's go! That's what I'm talking about! Woo!
Stop by the UPS Store for holiday help shipping holiday gifts. Product, services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details.
Last-minute holiday gifting is a good deal better at Meijer. Bring more joy to everyone on your list with last-minute deals on must-haves, like select Lego playsets now 30% off. And buy one, get one for $1 on select Yankee Candle products. Gift cards are great for the hard-to-buy for. Spend $100 or more on select gift cards and earn 10,000 MPerks points. That's a $10 reward just for you. Last-minute gifts for everyone on your list. That's the good life at Meijer. Exclusions apply. See all deals in the Meijer app and at mperks.com.